It's no surprise that the United States incarcerates more people than any other country in the world. But if you look at the newest statistics, I think some of the findings are pretty jarring. In fact, we have 6.9 million people in the United States that are either in prison, on parole, or on probation. So let me give you the exact numbers. The number of people in prison or parole or on probation, that's 6.9 million Americans, exceeds the populations of the second and third largest cities, that's Los Angeles and Chicago combined, or the size of the next four, Houston, Philadelphia, Phoenix, and San Antonio put together. Now, there are a number of different reasons why this is the case. There's the emergence of private prisons. Of course, we lock away nonviolent drug offenders. We also now detain and basically imprison undocumented immigrants before we deport them. So there's this ridiculous argument about how, oh, they're using up our resources, but then why do we imprison them for years to come and then deport them? We do it so for-profit prisons can make money off of it. And so we have all these nonviolent people behind bars, and all of our tax dollars, or a majority of our tax dollars, majority is not right, but a significant amount of our tax dollars go toward incarcerating them. So 38 U.S. states are home to fewer people than live under the corrections system in this country.
So there's meaning 38 states have fewer than 7 million people. I mean, those numbers are staggering. It's like we have 52 states now, you know, and 2 of them are just a bunch of guys in prison, or again, on probation or parole. It's so dumb. It's so, and like what, the drug war was the impetus. The privatization of prisons plays a role now. I'm totally curious as to the percentages that are ultimately that are in private prisons, because they obviously have a much bigger incentive than the state. I mean, the state, you would think, has an incentive to get the people out, right, and to have them not come back. But we're still at the point where what is the numbers? How quickly the recidivism rate?
Oh, the recidivism rate is.
We both said it right. That's so great.
Yeah, it is. We're professionals. The recidivism rate is really high in the United States. I mean, you have some states like California where the recidivism rate is about 60%.
Now you're just showing off.
Sorry. But yeah, 60% in California alone. And I think that the average in the United States is around 50%. So there's really an incentive for these for-profit prisons to have a high recidivism rate, because they want to ensure that they have a steady flow of inmates. And by the way, I mean, some people would argue, hey, that's private enterprise, but it's not really private, because public money gets funneled into these private prisons. And the whole argument is that the private prisons help save money. But there have been numerous studies done that show that that's not the case, because they get to cherry pick the type of inmates they bring in, and usually they have these contracts that has like a clause, and it's a minimum occupancy clause, right? And it says 90% of our beds need to be full, and if they're not, the state still has to pay for the empty beds.
The numbers are just, it's so dumb. It's so, and the problem with the private, I'm sure that's all, well, that's all true, and there's nothing good about a private prison. Nothing good about a private prison. Mm-hmm. But the notion that, like, once a state writes a check to the private prison company, they kind of wash their hands of it. You would think states that are literally seeing the expense that they have to pay for every prison, for every inmate, would be interested in reducing those and getting the guys who aren't a danger to society out of jail, and then engage as a state, and then engaging in a process that trains them, gives them the proper job training, so we dramatically reduce the odds that we're going to see them again, because it benefits all of us if we go out and they work.
Yeah, and it all really goes back to how we lost our priorities when it comes to our justice system, because, you know, of course there's the element of punishment, but then there's supposed to be that element of rehabilitation, but we've completely abandoned that notion. Now we focus primarily on keeping them in a cell, in a lot of cases abusing these people to the point where they do become hardened criminals after they've been incarcerated for a nonviolent crime. Now, if you break it down by race, the numbers are even more shocking and jarring. So 1 in 35 are under some form of correctional supervision, and that's all people in general. But if you look at race, likelihood to spend time in prison in the U.S., 1 out of 3 black males in this country are likely to spend time behind bars. And when it comes to Hispanics, it's 1 out of 6. When it comes to white males, it's 1 out of 25.
Sweet, we win again. Nailed it. 1 in 3.
Yeah.
1 in 3.
If you're black, you're very likely to end up behind bars.
Yeah. And then, and there are people around the country who've had innovative ways to sort of fix this problem, and we just tend not to look at them. And, and for a long time, politically, the good news is that it's significant news, I think, is that politically, this is no longer a crazy thing to talk about. Because in my lifetime, in the 80s and much of the 90s, if you talked about, hey, man, we got to let some of these guys out of prison. Like, this is crazy. You would have been seen as soft on crime and willing to pose a threat to innocent, young, virginal white women and children across this country. That's what that conversation meant, even if you never brought race into it. But you'd be like, we should probably open the doors to some prisons and let guys who aren't a danger out. Because the theory was, if you're in prison, you're dangerous, right? And the drugs are dangerous, and that eliminated the fact that and marijuana, and all of them are just as dangerous as the other. And then now we can at least have a normal we're close to being able to have a normal conversation. And I'm just guessing that 6 of those 6.9 million Americans, I don't know exactly what the number is, but half of them are nobody's arguing.
There's a huge chunk of people in prison right now that are nonviolent. It's because of drug offenses. Look, I think prison should be reserved for people who have murdered, who have assaulted, who have robbed, any type of violent crime. I mean, that's the whole point of prison. You want to keep people that are a threat to society out of society until they're rehabilitated.
And not just violent threat, but like the non-violent threat. I mean, the Bernie Madoff threats of the world, and Wall Street bankers and thugs. But I mean, guys who steal. If you take something that doesn't belong to you, right? But using drugs for yourself or your friends. Come on, what are we talking about?
Yeah, if there's a victimless crime, that person shouldn't be sent to prison. That person should be rehabilitated. It's that simple. I don't want prostitutes behind bars. I don't want drug users behind bars. I honestly don't want undocumented immigrants behind bars, because that goes against the entire argument that they're using up our resources. Why are we going to spend tax dollars to keep them in prison for a few years before deporting them? It doesn't make any sense. And that we didn't really do that until for-profit prisons started working with ALEC to lobby government to make sure that we detain them for as long as we can before we deport them. So it's all about profiteering. It's all about money. It's not about rehabilitating people. And that's why our justice system right now is so screwed up.